Hi, good morning, Ben. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic.
Okay, great. I'm
Can I
gonna
give you a
switch to
second?
I'm gonna switch to my laptop if that's okay.
Yeah, no worries. Just take your time. And what an
Okay.
exciting news today, right? At LinkedIn, I'm sure
Oh my
everybody is
gosh, is
super
that crazy,
excited.
huh?
Wow. I woke up to this news because I'm in Asia, right? And then I look on the phone. I was like, wow. I'm sure everybody is so happy.
Yeah, I think you learned before I'd learned.
No, no. I'm sure. Well, yeah. Up. I'm just so happy today because I woke up now for a surf. I just came back from a surf lesson, so I'm surfed this morning. So I'm just extremely high energy.
Oh boy. Yeah, no kidding. Um, so anyway, yeah, should we let me try turning my phone. Let me see if I can get it. Yeah, okay. I think this is better, maybe. You think?
Uh, it's a little bit better, yeah, sure. But when you speak, try to talk a little bit louder,
Okay.
just so you can get the volume, yeah.
Okay.
And I think you are a little bit too close to the computer as well. But then again, I guess that's better for the noise, so that's better for the volume. So maybe that's fine. Okay,
Okay. So if I let's see, it's you. Okay. It's how is this? Is
yeah,
this
that's
okay?
good.
Okay.
Yes, perfect.
Great.
But when you speak, please help you speak a little bit louder. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Let's get started. So welcome to Inner Fire Mentorship Program. Today, I'm super excited to be, talking to Ben. He is a senior engineer at LinkedIn, and he is just one of the very thoughtful authors that I've come across, and I've follow his blogs a lot. And so Ben has more than 20 years of experience building a highly respected career. He's now watching a movie and in love with programming because he thinks that code can change when it does, right? You can do unlimited things with it. So it's extremely to be my pleasure talking to such a deep thinker like Ben today. And we're going to be talking mainly about career development and what advice that he would have for himself and for other people. Hi, Ben.
Hi there.
Perfect. Yeah, so I know you've been doing this for so long in Silicon Valley. You went to Stanford for a master's degree. So this is as hardcore as it gets. So could you share with us a little bit more information, about like if you were going back time and if you could start, talking to your 22 years old self, what sort of career advice or would you have? And keep in mind that a lot of our listeners are young college graduates and, all over the world really. And sometimes they're not quite sure what to do. So I would love to hear from you.
Okay. So I'm gonna try to get closer to the mic now. Okay. So
Perfect.
I yeah. What I would say is even though my face is now much bigger, um, when I was young, I remember feeling like I had a lot of time. Okay. And I mean, you do have a lot of time. Okay. And I think the a natural reaction to that feeling is you kind of say, well, I have so much time, I'll just take it easy. You know, like once you find a good job, you learn how to do it, and then you just kind of stay there, and you don't explore so much, explore your job, right? And you don't like try a lot of different jobs or you know um, explore a lot of different hobbies or whatever. And I mean, this is not universally true, but I think young people, they tend to think, oh, I have all the time in the world. But the thing about being young is that usually when you're young, you also don't have a lot of responsibilities and things that tie you down. You know, like you don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have people relying on you, and you can be a lot more mobile. And so, I think people, they miss the opportunity that, when they're young, they can try a lot of different things, you know. If I could go back and tell my 22-year-old, some advice, I would say, hey, uh, you know, I know you love engineering, but maybe you should try working at a number of different kinds of companies, startups, universities, scientific places, government, you know, uh, big successful internet companies, mobile companies, and just try to figure out which one you really like, because you should use the opportunity of the time that you have when you're young to try these things, because there's very little risk, there's little downside. I mean, if you basically work at something, and then you fail, well, then you just pick yourself up and then you start again. If you're bad at some job, if you get fired or whatever, I mean, hey, no big deal, you just go and look for another job. When you're young, that's okay.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, I completely agree with you. To accentuate on your point that young people have less responsibility, and it's actually the perfect time, and maybe more brain elasticity. It's a perfect time to try and take risks, right? Is there any examples that you share about you specifically taking some risk or facing any of your fears? Listeners can get to know your story a little bit better.
Taking risks or facing fears? Yeah. So I would say that maybe not necessarily professionally, but I would say that just recently, okay, I've been facing my fears about doing things that I love to do, right? So I've recently written a book, and I write, in the last, I think, two years, and year or 2 years, and I'm also writing a lot of blogs. And what I'm doing is I'm putting myself out there, right? I mean, I really wish that I had done this a lot earlier, because I really enjoy it, and it's kind of a shame that I put it off for so long,
Really, that's actually a perfect point I would to touch on. The ability to be vulnerable, putting yourself out there, actually takes so much courage. Because all our lives we've been taught to follow the mainstream, right? To study really hard in school, just to get really good grades, get into the fantastic, master program, and get into a fantastic job, climb the corporate ladder. It feels safe. But the moment when you separate yourself and put yourself out there, open for criticism, open for new things, it feels really scary. This is actually going back to the process. This is actually what I always encourage young listeners. You need to, and this is why I do meditation, you need to kind of dig deep, because when you're going into an interview, right, and which we're going to move into the session, and the interviewer asking you to share something about yourself, and you just share the generic things. Oh, I know Java, I've done 2 years of classes of this, I've done this internship. You're sharing something that is quite mainstream, and most people would have, perhaps, but you're not sharing who you are, what you believe in, what you're passionate to do for the world, right? But why you don't share? Because you're afraid if you're putting yourself out there and sharing what you believe in your story, you're open up for criticism, right? So a lot of people might feel a little bit scared to share actually who they are, and this is a message I definitely want to get across. If the listener, if the interviewer likes your story, then it's a great company. If they don't like your story, maybe you should look for a different company, right? It's good to find out early on. So I love your message, of just putting yourself out there and take some risk.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit on a really good point. When I've come across someone who is really genuine, as in somebody who, it's so easy to just put on a face, and your interview face or your public face. Right. And then people will, and then interact with people, and I'm so smiles and handshake, whatever. But to I mean, I think one of the biggest fears that people have is basically, to be themselves, out in public, and to say sometimes, hey, I don't know, or hey, I'm kind of scared about this, or I know I have a certain fault, and like to admit that it's actually like a sign of strength, but you have to do that in very
thoughtful way.
in a way that, yeah, in a discreet way, like in a smart way. You can't just like go out there and just scream that you don't know anything or whatever. You need to, and of course nobody will, but to share that, sometimes it makes people appreciate that you're being honest with them, and that you're being courageous in facing your fears. So I completely echo what you just said, Lily.
Perfect. I move nicely to the next question, which is, you have done interviews before hiring young engineers, and you've seen some people done really well because you work with them, after the interviews, and to be really successful engineers that you also mentor. So my question is, like, what are the 2 common traits that you've seen in successful engineers, and how do you tease it out?
Okay, so I feel very prepared for this question because I recently wrote a blog about it.
Yes.
So someone asked me this question about a week ago or 2, and so my answer is the 2 traits are curiosity and perseverance. So, and I'll explain why each of them. Okay, so I think we live in a world where things are changing like really fast. Okay, and so I think that what the number one skill that people are going to need from now on, essentially, is the skill to learn whatever new things you need to learn, the skill to learn new skills, and basically adapt and learn the new tools or the new platforms, whatever, and also to the interest in problems that your organization or your team or someone else faces. I mean, we always talk about people with initiative, people that are proactive. And I kind of you wonder why, like, why are some people really interested in like these super hard problems? And I feel like it is precisely those people who are curious about these problems, who don't want to just say, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I'm going to take off, or oh yeah, that's that person's problem, that's on that team or whatever. Like sometimes the problem is kind of like you realize it affects a lot of people, or it's it's blocking a whole bunch of people, and you want to be helpful, and you say, look, I'm gonna be part of the team that solves this problem. Being that person is gonna make you very valuable in the organization, because 1, you're gonna learn a lot, right? And then 2, you're gonna make a name for yourself, and 3, it's kind of a way of pushing yourself to know, wow, just how much can I do? Like what am I able to do that oh, I hear an echo over there, but it's okay.
Let me put myself on mute 1 second. That could
okay, sure. Yeah. But pushing yourself to a point where like okay, this is how much I can do, like you never know how much how far you're able to go if you don't try, right? So don't just let somebody else be the driver. And that goes to my second point about perseverance, right? So perseverance, which nowadays a lot of people call grit, is a trait where, oh, this is worse, is a trait where basically you stick with something even when it's hard. Okay, so whatever the reason might be that where something is hard, like it may be that it's very tedious. You got to look through a lot of data, or it's hard because you don't understand something. The person who wrote something left the company already, or it's a very complicated problem that requires multiple people, and like you need to get them all into the same room or whatever. Perseverance is about like saying, look, I know that it can be solved, and because I know this, I believe that I will be the person that will be part of the solution, right? I mean, it's only a matter of time. It is not a matter of how do I put this? It's not a matter of if a problem can be solved. It's a matter of when, right? And I think sort of the ability to develop perseverance comes from knowing, like, believing in this very important thing called the growth mindset. Okay, so this is a book I highly recommend to a lot of young people. Is a book called Mindset. It's basically about how some people are focused on like measuring themselves and saying, oh, what's my limit, and just kind of like they have the fixed mindset. They don't believe that they can more than a certain amount. And then other people have the growth mindset. They're more focused on learning, right? And they say there's no limit, no inherent limit to what I can do if I put my mind to it, and if I make mistakes or if I fail, as long as I learn from those, then I haven't lost everything. Okay, so those kinds of people, after they practice that mindset for a long time, they're going to start believing that they can do whatever they set their mind to given enough time. Okay, so those are the two kinds of traits that I would basically say people I look for in candidates.
Oh, that's perfect. I love how you break it down, and especially because in an engineering role, right, most of the time it's very technical, because in a class, right, you've gone to college, you've gone to universities, there's always these technical classes and programming, and that's what you train on. But there isn't a class on like grit. There isn't a class on like curiosity, right? So when you come into an interview, the problem is that you like to share what you've been taught instead like who you might truly are. And the thing is, though, especially for a fresh grad, they're taking the classes, so it's hard to stand out, right? I mean, if you have 10 years experience, and you can talk about all your amazing accomplishment, but if you're a fresh grad, just much similar to each other. And so your message is actually really important. Of course, you have to show that you have the technical skills, right? That you did go to school, that you did learn all these classes, and that you could do the job, right? So the technical skill you still have to prove. But beyond that, you should spend a significant time during the interview talking about like why you love teamwork, why love, like you as a person loves like curiosity and love solving problems, and it keeps you up at night and you see patterns in the world. Talk more about that. If the interviewer doesn't talk about it, you should still be jumping out of your seat. You should still be like screaming this from on top of the mountain, right? Because this is who you are, it's what you believe in. And I think our message is very similar on this. Like, let that inner fire, let that inner like you through a little bit, and don't be like, oh, I'm here, I'm just gonna talk about these programming classes, like how I solve problems, but you come out, because any job, right, is going to get tough, and this is where parties come in, right? Any jobs, like you said, is gonna get tough, and so at 5 o'clock, like you said, they're out of the door, right? Then how am I going to count on you? And as a senior manager, like your success also depends on their success. Everybody's success is independent of each each other, right? So I think it's really important to drive the message home that yes, you do have to prove your technical skills, but don't be afraid and pick a personal trait and shine through. You know, you don't have to necessarily pick curiosity, but whatever other personal traits that you have, like if you are a really strong team player or you're really excellent communicator or whatever, you should let the shine through a little bit, right? So I think that's a perfect message. Do you have like an actual example of somebody you hired with traits that have gone on to do really well? We don't have to share any names, but like just, you know, maybe some actual examples so that, you know, people listening can have a better visualization.
Yeah, so this is actually not somebody I hired necessarily, but somebody I knew. He was a former boss of mine. He was like, 15 years younger than me, and he was he was really almost like a phenomenon because this guy had risen up in the ranks really fast. And I watched his career, right? And the reason why he had moved up so fast was because, when he saw projects that he, that were interesting and really hard, he asked people to be his manager and whoever else, the manager of some other project, whether he could be on that team. Because, it's like most other people are afraid of hard problems, right? But if you're not afraid of hard problems, right? If you're like, hey, there's nothing I can lose because I'm the most junior person here. If I fail, yeah, well, whatever, whatever, no, nothing's going to happen. And I'm not the one whose reputation is going to be lost because I have no reputation. So he would jump into these really hard problems and just start, asking questions and, digging for the answers and learning as much as he possibly could. And, doing experiments, if you will, because you could take the code and you could change it and run it on your own box and, see what happens and all this. So, he's definitely one of those people who just keeps learning. And, he did it because, not because somebody else told him, but because, he just loves these hard problems, so that's a guy that I think, wow, he's going to be like, really big someday. He's going to be a VP of engineering, very soon, so
Fantastic.
like in 10 years or something. Yeah.
That is fantastic. Wow, what a great story. I love it. Now, I just probably want to dive this into a little bit further, right? You said that you're looking specifically for curiosity and, the ability to peers, right? So like, what questions would you ask to find out? Because how do you know if I'm curious? And how do you know if I would, stick it out? So what sort of questions would you ask?
Yeah, so I wouldn't just ask you, are you curious? That would be kind of dumb, right? So instead, no, what I do is I say, oh, hey, so what do you like to do in your free time? What are you interested in? What, have you read? What have you read recently? I mean, from these, I can tell, like if somebody says, oh, I like playing video games. Oh, I like to whatever, like things that are like not very challenging. I just think, oh, well, maybe, this person is not, but if the person says, oh yeah, I'm building my own, whatever, server farm or my own motorcycle, or, I'm participating in this open source project where we're doing X, something. Then I'm
I'm flying drones around to spy on people. That could be interesting. Cool. Awesome. That's a great question. And grit, like what sort of questions would you ask here?
Grit, I would say, that's not something people will necessarily brag about. But that's something that like the references might tell me, if I were to follow up. But you can kind of tell by, like if you ask somebody like, look, tell me about a challenge that you've faced before, and, what you've done, and when you were faced with that challenge. And, an average person would say, something like, oh, yeah, there was this problem, this bug that was hard. And, it was a deadline and I had to stay up overnight and, fix it or whatever. But somebody who has grit might tell you about like, yeah, let me think. Yeah, there was this tough manager or whatever, or there was this problem that basically, nobody thought that they could solve. Nobody thought it was solvable, and I kept plugging away at it, and eventually I figured out some solution, a basic solution, and the rest of the team, I explained it to the rest of the team, and the team basically was convinced, and they ran with it, and I couldn't build out the actual solution, but the team was convinced enough that I got them on board or something. So that's somebody that with grit, right? Somebody who just basically, you look for examples where people just don't give up. Okay, they refuse to give up. So that's what I would say.
Have you ever sit in an interview loop where the technically sound but not culturally fit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been in interviews where there are smart people, people you could tell they're good at interviews and so forth. But then, when you say, well, do you have any questions for us, about LinkedIn or whatever, they'd be like, nah, yeah, what time do you guys get off? Do you guys work normal hours? It's like, are you kidding? Ask us about the culture or about, I don't know what, open source or anything. Ask us some good questions.
Yeah.
At least pretend like you're interested in engineering. Like I met one interviewer candidate that she asked about oh, is there a shuttle from the train to this office? And I'm like, that was her first question. And I'm an environmentalist, so I respect that. But I don't think that that should be your first question, as an engineer applying to LinkedIn,
Yeah.
So you get the
idea. That candidate who asked the first question as well, you have any questions for me? What is a work-life balance? And I was like, this is the first question you're gonna ask me. So
yeah,
of course that didn't work out very well. So fantastic. Okay, so I think that a lot of our viewers are young, so they don't know how to interview, and so sometimes objections, right? And so what advice would you have for people who face rejections, and if there are specific ways they can improve themselves, whether in terms of skills or whether in terms of communications, what advice would you have?
Okay, so here's what I would say. Okay, since this is advice specifically tailored to engineers, this is what I would say. There's one way that you can cheat and get a lot of experience and get far ahead of the competition. Okay, and it is called open source. So a lot of companies, LinkedIn included, have a lot of open source projects. People participate in open source projects. LinkedIn has a number of open source projects that we've released, and anybody can participate. That's the whole idea of open source, right? And anybody can participate and contribute bug fixes and work on new features or whatever. And when that happens, okay, a bunch of great things happen. Okay, so one, you get some experience and some sort of FaceTime or familiarity with the people who work in that company, right? So you get to know them, and you learn some very valuable industry knowledge, right? Real world, engineering expertise. Two, they get to know you. Okay, they become familiar with you, and like there's no yeah, obviously you're not getting paid, but like they have to interact with you if you're working on the project, and that can only help you when you're interviewing, right? You're so familiar with the open source project, you can mention it during the interview and say, oh, I've contributed XYZ bug fixes and so forth, and that says to us, to LinkedIn, as well as to any employer, that you are passionate about software, and that you are a good citizen. You contribute, you care about quality. And then third, other companies will look at that and say this, feel the same thing. Like they'll feel like you, even if you're working on a LinkedIn open source projects, they'll be like, oh yeah, well at least you're working on some open source project. And then fourth, it's also it's a free way for you to kind of like learn about what interests you. Like there's open source projects about everything, okay? About big data, about mobile, about machine learning, about whatever, you name it, okay? The web UI, so I mean, there's just so many possibilities out there. It's really up to you. And the main problem with it is most people after work, they just don't want to, it's like it's hard to like have to work on the computer again after you've been doing 8, 9, 10 hours on the computer already, right? If you do that, it's a huge advantage when you go interview somewhere, okay? And in fact, I think I've even heard some recruiters will look at GitHub and whatever to source candidates, to find candidates, because that's where all the good programmers are. So that's a big advice that I have. But and also you can also read the engineering blogs of various different companies. So.
Yeah, no, that is a fantastic advice. I love it. I absolutely love it. And the reason why I love it so much is because it's so practical, Ben. I'm all about like being practical. Especially young college students, fresh grads ask me all the time, right? Because when they're new, everybody's like on the same playing field. It's hard for me to say, how can you significantly improve your chances? Especially from the angle, right? Yes, you can improve your chances by being sharing personal traits that we talk about, right? Having a passion. Was very hard. So the advice you give is like golden. I love it so much because they can start doing it even when they're in school, or they can do it afterward. And what that like starting doing an open source project, what it does, it shows it's like it shows proactive. That's actually a really part, right? Like curiosity and proactivity. That instead of just sitting around to the mall, I'm being proactive and I'm curious, I'm learning new things. And then also you're learning new things about like, maybe I joined this project, maybe I don't like this sort of programming, maybe I like this other project better. You're learning new things all the time about yourself, and that's an amazing feedback loop that you can build for your career, right? So because if you know what kind of like programming you like, then you can go towards those jobs and you will set up. So that advice, that is, I wouldn't call that a cheat. I would call that, wrong, perhaps, because you are doing honest work, right? And that advice is amazing. I love it. So just a few more questions for you, because I'm very conscious of your valuable time. And that is, are there certain, specifically for your industry as an engineer, are there certain resources you recommend, people read, like certain blogs or books or things like that? I know that on podcasts or people to follow, I know that you mentioned the book Mindset. definitely check it out. But other resources to think, because for young people, building industry knowledge is really important. So do you have any sort of advice on this? It'd be great.
Yeah. So, the funny thing is, I mean, there's just so much stuff out there, right? So I know a lot of people will read Hacker News. Okay, Hacker News is a very popular source of information for technical stuff as well as a lot of other stuff. And then there's certain people whose blogs or books or whatever have kind of influenced a lot of software developers. There's a guy named Joel, Joel, Joel Spolsky, Spolsky.
Spolsey. Okay.
Spolsky.
Okay.
I'll text it to you later. His blog has been very famous as a engineer, like a software blog. I mean, there's also some books that are really good. I mean, there's a whole set of books on called the Pragmatic Programmer series. And that's a really good set. I would say that there's a book that I really like called Refactoring. It's by I think Martin Fowler. And I like that one. And I also, but the thing is that I think that software people shouldn't just read software books. Okay. I think that like the mindset book, it's a really useful tool, for anybody who's doing work. And another book that I recommend is called Drive. Okay. So Drive is a book by a guy named Daniel H. Pink. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's really about intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. And the reason I recommend these books is because they're going to help, you become aware of, how you motivate yourselves, and how a young person can be more aware of, how they react to mistakes, as well as like what they're passionate about, like what gives them joy. Okay. And just very recently, I heard about a book by a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay. Also known as Gary V. Okay.
Yeah. Gary V. He is a solid person, very energetic.
Right. And he really advocates people, finding their passion and so forth. And he has a web blog on what do you call it, on YouTube. So he has a number of books that are very, very influential. So and then there's a few other books I want to mention. One is called The Mythical Man Month by Fred Brooks. It's really old. It was written when there were still IBM mainframes around, but it really talks about how you can't, like, even a field as amazing as software has to obey certain laws about basically you can't just throw more people at a project and expect that you will ship faster. Okay. It's sort of a Bible among software people, and anytime that a project is late, everybody talks about like, oh yeah, no, you can't. I mean, a really good analogy is you can't just get 9 women together and have a baby in a month. It just doesn't work like that. It takes 9 months. Like you can't just scale like that.
I'm going to steal that analogy. I'm stealing that analogy. That's awesome. So sorry, it's called Mythical Minefield?
No, Mythical Man Month. Like man hours.
Okay.
Man-month.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit gender not neutral, but the ideas are really good. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's really
And then the last book that I recommend is a book that my colleague has been blogging about. It's called Clean Code.
Okay.
I forget the name of the
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay.
That's perfect. Oh my gosh, you're giving so much useful information, and I love it. You're giving it from books, like older books to newer books, and from like books to more like mindset building, which I love. And then you also, suggest Gary Vee, which I'm also a fan. And I personally consume information in more of a visual format. I love YouTube, so for maybe the younger crowd, they love YouTube as well because the energy can shown across a lot better than in a book. So, but you've given like a really good spectrum, and and I mean, like, some of the, like when you read, wish you have read it and when you were 22, right? It would make a huge impact when you were 22. So I'm glad that you're introducing these sort of, like foundational books to these younger folks. And hopefully you also make an impact in their life. So just maybe the last question, and we will wrap it up, which is that, you are working definitely in the middle of Silicon Valley in a highly respected company. So when you look around, right, what sort of specifically in software do you find exciting? That I think, it's definitely going to be the trend of the future.
Well, those are 2 different things, I think. So exciting versus the trend of the future. So, I mean, I think basically you have to understand yourself. I think a lot of people have a pretty good idea. Like, hey, do they want, some people, they really love big, meaty engineering challenges, right? Other people, maybe they want to get a product out there and see as many people use it as possible. Mm-hmm. Other people, like they really just want to help people. So, they want to create tools that actually, make life better for somebody, I mean, all of those are different goals. And you just, I think that it's just important for you to understand what is it that makes you passionate? What drives you? Okay. And you should go after that. And for me, I'm somebody who who likes to help people, just like you, Lily. And so I like products that basically make things possible for people where somebody could not have done it before, and have a real impact on their lives. I mean, like, I particularly think that LinkedIn publishing has democratized the ability for people to write blogs. They make it so simple, and it's just right on your profile. And it's sort of like, okay, it's just simple enough that anybody who's not a WordPress whiz or a web designer can actually write a decent blog, and have a pretty good reach. It's like it opens up a whole world of experiences, a whole world of possibilities, because now people can come to your profile and they'll really see like who you are, like really care about, and you can there's no limit on the number of blog posts you can write. I've seen people write 200, 300 blog posts, and it's like writing, like, I don't know, like 10 books or whatever. And people, and people will get value out of every one of those, so I think that kind of product, that kind of technology, enabling technology is like, you know, it's just, the potential is limitless. And so I feel like it's amazing. You know, it's not the stuff that, you know, kind of blows your mind, that you know, like AI stuff or self-driving cars, although self-driving cars are cool, but you know, not that kind of stuff that that excites me. You know, I don't geek out on that. It's the stuff that excites me is when real people are impacted, you know, they benefit from something. Sometimes they don't even thank you, you know, but you can tell that they you know, their lives were improved. I mean, that's how I met you, Lily. You know, is you were writing posts, and I saw you in my feed, and you know, I commented, and we met, and you know, here we are. I mean,
here we are.
you know,
Here we are.
right? And Google Hangouts. I mean, you're in some other part of the world. I don't even know where. You, and hopefully people are gonna benefit from this thing, and it's recorded, and you know, it's awesome. It's amazing, right?
They will, because I've learned so much from you, Ben, and I love your last answer, because, you know, I mean, I was naively guided you toward, you know, like, oh, what's exciting, right? But you like that, and you pull back, which is much a deeper answer, and I really love that. And so that, look, really, it's not necessarily what is exciting in the field, because that might not be a good fit for that person. Essentially, you need to dig with, find what sort of like projects you like to work on, you know, whether it's complex like war solving, you know, solving war peace sort of problem, or whether, you know, it's like fast and productivity, or whether it's like helping people, right? So you gotta dig deep. And this goes back to your earlier point that I love so much, Ben, is for young people, they might know what projects they like to work on. So that goes back to 2 points. Some risk, and just throw yourself, you know, go on open source community, throw yourself into a project. If you love it, fantastic, congratulations, you found stuff early on, I'm so happy for you. If you don't like it, it's also really valuable in that sense, because you find out, you know what, I really don't like to work on this kind of project for the rest of my life, no matter the amount of money you can pay me, right? So those are really valuable lessons at the end of the day. And you know, I just really love the answer on that. Close with probably one thing that we share in common, which is LinkedIn posts, right? So for the young folks that ask me as well, like, how can I, you know, build more credibility in this industry? I'm like, you know, I don't have so much industry knowledge. I don't have so much network. Like, how can I impress my potential interviewers and give more credibility? And the answer could be as simple as writing a really awesome LinkedIn post, right? Think back of like college days, you would be spending like a thesis paper. You can spend that same amount of time doing primary research and their research, and then putting together a really awesome LinkedIn post, and then you build a new network. And then, you know, you can also, if it's really good, some sort of credibility, and perhaps hopefully later on thought leadership, right? So we totally share the same view on this. I have some technical questions. Problem on my end, I can't really see the questions that are coming in. I'm sorry, I will send that to you later on. But
okay,
I want to wrap up. I've learned so much from this, and because I don't have background, you know, like as an engineer. So the next time that I'm going to be advising young engineers, I can speak with more authority, and I'll point them toward you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, you can.
Thank you so much, Ben. And I'm actually in Bali. So the next time you're in Bali, you know, just let me know. I will show you all the cool spots. Yeah.
Bali, jeez, I'm jealous. Well, I'm in Mountain View, so I don't know which one is more exotic.
Well, you have good Indian for, so, but Bali is definitely more exotic.
Yes. Yeah.
I
think I'd rather be in Bali.
You will, I'm sure soon. Have a fantastic week ahead, Ben, and I will see you when I get back in July. Yeah? Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lily. This is a great opportunity. And thank you for doing this for the young people.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Ben. Nice.